Dombuadu of the MPP was mining in Ankwaso. I went there. It was the former driver who was in the helm of affair for him. I did it back then. The former driver brought money, 40,000 cedis, to bribe the task force that we went with.
The more we push, the more our system allows for divergent voices to be present in this discourse.
In the past 5 years, we have lost $11.2 billion to gold that have been smuggled. All of this gold is coming from all of these illegal activities. And so, the nature of the robbery that is being done to our country is not something that we should be toying with. This is organized crime.
You're listening to the CDD-Ghana Democracy Dialogues podcast, a platform for meaningful conversations on governance, democracy, and development. From policy discussions to citizen perspectives, we explore key topics like electoral reforms, economic policies, and human rights. Join the conversation on YouTube, Spotify, and our website. Stay informed, stay inspired.
Welcome to the CDD-Ghana Democracy Dialogues podcast. My name is Mama Viosu Abuaje, and I'm your moderator for today's episode. We have a compelling engagement ahead as we discuss the topic assessing Ghana's anti-Galamsey fight, progress, setbacks, and systemic challenges. Joining me are insightful and experienced guests who bring diverse perspectives to this critical issue. Let me introduce to you Erastus Asari Donko, who is a celebrated Ghanaian broadcaster and investigative journalist with the Multimedia Group Limited, a graduate of Christian Service University College and the University of Cape Coast. He began his career in Kumasi and has risen to the role of assistant news editor, reporting for Joy FM, Joy News, Love FM, and other outlets. Erastus is deeply respected for his fearless reporting on environmental and social issues, particularly illegal mining, largely known in Ghana as Galamsey. His exposés, including the impactful documentary Poison for Gold, have earned him multiple accolades, including Journalist of the Year at the 2022 GJA Awards, also the Best Reporter on Illegal Mining at the 28th GJA Media Awards. And this is quite recent, the Environmental Sustainability Personality of the Year by the Departments of Planning at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. We also have Josephine Adbeko. She's a feminist leader in climate justice and sustainable business development. She's the founder of Climate Voice Global, which is a climate advocacy entity focused on promoting access to climate information to influence climate accountability and action. Ms. Adbeko serves as C40 Cities City Advisor for Inclusive Climate Action in Accra, where she is the technical and policy lead and provides support to city departments and the Office of the Mayor for the implementation of equitable climate action in Accra. Josephine is also an active voice in the fight against Galamsey in Ghana, advocating for the repeal of LI 2462. Also joining the conversation is engineer Dr. Ken Ashigbe, who is a respected professional whose work spans engineering, media, telecommunications, and advocacy. Dr. Ashigbe currently serves as the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Chamber of Mines, a role he assumed after leading the Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications for several years. He's an engineer by training, holding a degree in electrical engineering from KNUST, an MBA from the University of Leicester, and a doctorate in business administration. Now, beyond his corporate leadership, Dr. Ashigbe is widely known for his passionate advocacy in the fight against illegal mining. As a convener of the Media Coalition Against Galamsey, he has been a bold voice calling for urgent action to protect our environments and water bodies from the devastating effects of Galamsey. All right, Erastus and Josephine, I'll begin with you on this very important conversation. So, Erastus, first with you. Will I be right in saying that there's increased crackdown on illegal mining today? What is the current state of the fight against illegal mining?
I wouldn't say increase. against illegal mining as compared to a previous administration. I'll be very careful in choosing my words in that area. And it's for one reason. The previous administration, the NPP administration, started very well. In 2017, they declared a ban on all forms of small-scale mining, and they went ahead to enforce the laws on mining. And I must say that they set up the Galamsey, the Inter-Ministerial Task Force. They went ahead to set up a military task force known as the Vanguard, and then they went to set up the Operating Force 1, Operating Force 2, all military task forces, and they started using them. It looked promising in the initial stage. Then, at a point in time, they had cold feet. Why? Because they started manipulating the very task forces that they set up to fight illegal mining. Many of the appointees in that administration began to feel that they have to use their power, abuse it, to go into Galamsey themselves. And so it was like they were sitting in a bucket and trying to lift themselves off the ground. And it was very difficult for them. So at a point they had cold feet, they relapsed, and they lost the fight. Between 2023 and 2024, there was no fight against illegal mining. They left people to do things on their own. And so it led us to what we are witnessing today. Invasion of forest reserves, mining on water bodies, mining along water bodies, mining in settlement against our own environmental laws. And that led us to the current administration, the NDC. This power changed hands from January to now. Immediately, we had party people who felt that this is our time. Let us get onto the field and start doing what the NPP started doing to gain money. And so many NDC talks got into forest reserves like Tamanya, Bointano, Nimri, and they started invading even GSBA, globally biodiversity significant areas, and they started mining forests.
So are you saying, Erastus, that these places that you mentioned were already occupied, being mined illegally by members affiliated to the previous administration, but once there was a change, different people took over who are affiliated to this new administration? Is that it?
You speak my language. These are areas that were invaded. For example, let me give you an example. Tananya Forest Reserve was first invaded by an NPP executive in the Awin municipality. They call him Chairman Addison. I called him personally and I asked him about that invasion. He did not deny it. And in fact, when he decided to leave after our persistent reports on that invasion, he decided to leave. He left the place and he wanted to come back. And so he left the equipment and everything intact. But it was an illegal mining activity. And so I insisted that the Forestry Commission destroyed that equipment. And they did. Today, many NDC groups within the Awin municipality teamed up with those people on the ground and went back to invade that forest. I started reporting on it from January. I drew government's attention to the fact that people have invaded that space. Nobody wanted to act. In fact, the MP for the area, Oscar Labi, was implicated. I called him. He said he's not the one who is urging them to invade the forest, but these were his boys in the forest. When persistently I reported, now they sent UBN soldiers from Central Region to go in there. The soldiers came back to tell me that they've been able to rid the forest of 3 out of the 5 groups. The 2 others, they could not find them. I said, fine, I'll find them for you. I flew a drone to cover the place and I identified them where they were working. In fact, it was not so difficult to identify. They were there with about 5 excavators in there. Certainly nobody will miss that. But the military said they missed that. Okay, so I sent the picture on my social media post and I said, these are the people. Those are the 5 excavators. Those pictures are still on my Facebook page. And now they went back. They did not arrest them until the concession owner, the one who has been given that concession, Plain Job Company Limited, I approached them and I said, hey, under the law, you have been given rights to mine in that area. Under the law, you are supposed to protect your concession. So if these people are not minding me, what are you doing to protect your concession? Because I wanted to use that to get rid of the people. And then they brought in soldiers and quickly they seized 17 excavators. Those who got in of the invasion parked 25 excavators at the edge of the forest. From the forest, they parked at the edge and told the task force that those excavators were not in the forest. I asked them, what were the excavators doing in the forest area? There is no construction of roads here. What were they doing in the area? And until date, those 25 excavators were not seized. The 17, they seized. A court in the area said they should take back the excavator, they should give it back to the guarantee operator until the case is heard. I posted on my Facebook page, I disagree with the court ruling. The law said, get the excavators back into the custody of the Forestry Commission. And we did. So if you ask me, as we speak, there is mining in settlements, homes, Wasa towns, Wasa Ntwentwena, Wasa Krupon, Wasa Japa, Wasa Babieso. All of them you see mining in homes. Contrary to the Minerals and Mining Act. You go to Otuno, just by the main Kumasi Accra road, mining in the full glare of the public, just by the main road, inches away from that. Contrary to our laws, which are 100 meters away from a public road. When you go to Odumase, they are digging beneath homes. When you go to Akrokare, they are digging inside the settlement. Secondary schools are affected. When I report it to police, nobody takes action. You go to Dunkwao, the bridge itself on the Dunkwao River has been affected. Nobody is acting. So now people are becoming too bold to bridge the Ankobra in 2. They blocked the Ankobra in 2 at Prisia mine, and they are sitting in the basin using excavators to mine. At Awodia, they are doing the same thing.
Let me bring in Josephine. Josephine, what Erastus describes is more of a cyclical pattern where we see periods of intense crackdown and then the problem resurfaces. From his description, it's not as if we're even cracking down anything. What has been your own observation? I'm very glad, Mama V, that Erastus has taken us off with this very vivid description of what is happening on the ground, because he is on the ground and he sees these things happen day to day. Let me go on by emphasizing that we really have arrived at an epoch where we are presented with an important opportunity to right all the wrong when it comes to mining, particularly in our reserves or alluvial mining, illegal mining, as we've observed it. And it presents us also this opportunity to attempt to undo all the damage, or as much damage that we can undo, that our resources allow us, our policies allow us, these damages that we've done to our water bodies. through this unfettered access to forest reserves, uncontrolled mining that is happening in our forests and our water bodies and other areas where truly people shouldn't have access to mining. It's no surprise for us all that the uncontrolled, loosely guarded mining that we're seeing right now is posing an existential threat to our livelihoods, to our health, to our sanctity as a nation. We need to begin to right all the wrongs of environmental damage, all the wrongs of illegal mining that our country has witnessed, all the damage that we've done to our water bodies. This is an important time, a unique opportunity we are presented with. And I'll give 2 reasons. One is because we are facing an existential threat. When you look at the situation of illegal mining in our country, our health is impacted, livelihoods are impacted. It's become also a national security threat. If you look at the forms of illegal mining and the kinds of protections that illegal miners are starting to secure for their work. But also, Mama V, when you look at the kind of mass protests that we've had in the last few years, both residents' protests or citizens' protests or workers' strikes, for instance, all these are already signaling to us that citizens have taken a position, or the public has taken a position against illegal mining, against uncontrolled, unfettered access to protected resources that we have as a country. And it's become really crucial for our government of the day to restore the very much needed trust of our public, of our people, in how it wants to manage or regulate illegal mining in our nation. And secondly, how the government is going to reassert environmental rule of law, and how the government will reaffirm our own commitment to ourselves in terms of environmental status, environmental protection, but also all these commitments that we keep making year after year, period after period, internationally, and as signing ourselves up for all these decrees or policies that we ratify in our country. It's really, we've been presented a moment to do that. And I believe this will send a strong message locally and worldwide that yes, Ghana wants to develop, but no, our development will not come at a cost of ecological suicide to our nation. And I think this is a kind of consciousness that we need. There's a kind of consciousness that activists have, policymakers are starting to introduce into our thinking, into our policies. And it's important that we have a government that also already sees illegal mining as ecological suicide.
Do you think that the protests that are held in the capital, in the city, are effective? I mean, are we is that translating into real results? I mean, the last time there was a massive protest from Stop Galamsey to free the citizens because there were over 50 persons, activists who were arrested in the process. Now, if you look at the fact that this is not changing, then you want to think about the actions that we are taking. Are they translating into results? Because from all the descriptions that Rastas gave a while ago, it looks like even the protests are not making any meaningful impact.
This is an important point you make, Mama V, and I think it's rather unfortunate that people who protest to protect our livelihoods, people who protest to protect our health, our welfare as a nation, are rather seen as deviants or seen as people that are going against government or the government of the day in previous administrations that we have. So that period of our lives or of our politics was a really unfortunate moment. It's important, however, to note that protests are always important. Political position, taking political positions are always important, whether they are for the government or against the government. This is always important, and it's a way of showing how citizens are participating in governance processes. So protests are always important, and of course we wouldn't always get immediate results from protests, and this is why we should be consistent, and we should also think of the long-term journey or the long-term road ahead of us. An example I can give of how protests can help shape decision making or can help change the course of action is the period between the protests that we've had in the last year or two and the fact that Galamsey increasingly is becoming an important issue for consideration in our politics, in our elections. I know that in the last elections, a few of our political parties had indicated or had included Galamsey related issues and had almost promised to Ghanaians to say that if we assume power, we are going to do ABC. An example is we are going to repeal LI 2462. And we've seen in the last month or so that the presidency has started taking some action in this regard, where certain policies are being reversed or turned. And obviously, we want more, and we are pushing for a repeal of LI's 2462 because that is what has opened up our forest reserves, our lands, to illegal mining, to even in most instances, as people argue, to legal mining. But Maravi, you and I both know that the emergence of legal mining within protected havens or protected reserves is really just an open door invitation for illegal mining to also occur in those places. And we've seen the impact of this in our water bodies. Erastus has shown us the videos through documentaries, and we've seen them in other places as well. So let me just round up and say that protests are important. Protesters should be protected. We should have governments that respect the rule of law and give room for protests against issues like illegal mining to take place, engage protesters, engage civil society decision makers or civil society actors in deciding what is the way forward for this policy or governance area that we are embarking on. The impact may be slow, but certainly we will see some changes. The more we push, the more our system allows for divergent voices to be present in this discourse.
Erastus, Josephine is obviously an advocate for the repeal of this LI 2462, which is the environmental protection regulations, essentially allowing for mining activities within forest reserves. But I don't know if advocates remember that even if this law is repealed, we still will have a policy that would allow for persons to get into forest reserves. And in fact, there are established mining companies that operate within the forest reserves. Erastus, will this law take away the fact that persons can go into the forest in reality?
Well, let me say that we have stirred the hornet nest. And what comes after that is that we get a beating. And that beating has already started. We created a monster. The previous administration had its own reasons in amending the law. You know, it was an environmental guideline which was very useful. That guideline stated clearly, demarcated our forests into red zones and green zones and all that. Areas where we cannot mine are called protected forest. Areas where there is a chance to mine 2% of production forest. But then they went ahead at the tail end of the law to give the president that power to say that after all these red zones and demarcations and all that, the president had the discretion to even open up protected forest for mining. That was the evil, if you would like to say that way, part of that particular law. And now since we opened that Pandora box, now we have a number of companies that have been given license under that particular law. You are a lawyer, I'm not a lawyer. But you know that even if you repeal that law, all the licenses granted under the law will still go ahead to mine. They still have right under that law. Currently, the window of opportunity that we have is that many of the companies have not ratified their mining lease in Parliament. And I have said it before. So if we are able to take action before they ratify, then we will not incur any judgment debts. But if we allow them to proceed to get full requirements and digging permits to start operation, then if you stop them, definitely they will fight you in court and the nation will incur some judgment debt before the forest can be free. All that I'm saying is that I have said time and time and again, if you have found gold in Successive and predecessors knew there was a sizable amount of gold in our forest reserves, but they decided not to mine. If we have decided to mine, why don't we have a plan? Say we have 2,088 whatever forest is there, 288 forests is there. We want to mine, say, 10 of them within the next 10 years. What method are we going to use? Let's define it. Hard rock, underground, pocket mining. Let's open the bid for which companies are ready to mine. Let's select the best ones with the best results. And then we accord those portions to them and let the Minerals Commission and EPA and other supervisory agencies supervise them. 1, we will get revenue. 2, the environment will be safe because then they will do responsible mining. All these people who have invaded our forest are illegal, totally illegal. No licenses, nothing. Politically exposed persons have invaded these forests and they have already destroyed a large part of it. That is what has happened.
So really, what is the challenge? I mean, we have military, we have police, we've had all these operations and task force, and we still, first of all, let me rephrase. Who are the miners? Who are these illegal miners? Who are they? What do they have that the people who are supposed to be protecting these sites don't have?
Let me give you examples. In 2022, I mentioned Akonta Mining Limited. The mining company is owned by the regional chairman, the Asante regional chairman of the MPP, Bernard Nchubusia, popularly referred to as Chema Untubi. He did not have any license at all to enter the Talon Imri Forest Reserve. But he did. He sent about 15 excavators in there, mined for days on end. Even when we exposed him and brought drone footages of him encroaching in that illegality, he still continued to mine. And the president at the time came to defend him that as he was speaking, Chema to me was not mining in any forest reserve, but he was. Let me give you another example. John Boadu of the MPP was mining in Ankwasu in the western region. I went there. It was his former driver who was in the helm of affair for him. I did a story back then. The former driver brought money, 40,000 cedis, to bribe the task force that we went with. When I did that report, nothing happened. Heritage Imperial Company Limited started as C&J Alaska in Upper Wassa Forest Reserve. The company metamorphosed into Heritage Imperial, and then with the help of the late John, who was then the Forestry Commission boss, opened up the Apamprama Forest Reserve for Heritage Imperial. At the time when Galamsey, which I was part of, was sent into the forest to drive them out, they had nothing, not even a prospecting license, but they had 35 excavators in the Kobo section of their Pamprama Forest Reserve, degrading that forest. Today, 50%, the tithe of an entire Kumasi, is gone. 8 Bengalis of that forest reserve. These are the people who have penetrated into our of holies, our virgin forest reserve, and destroyed it. What has happened to them? Nothing. You have the cousin to the president at the time, Gabi Asaro Chudako, who was a lawyer to Heritage Imperial. You see the influence he brings on board this whole thing. What did the government of the day say about that? Nothing. So the impunity has been created, it continues to be created, it goes on and on and on and on today. Many of these companies, the kingpins in Galamsey, are hiding behind many of these companies, and they are moving into forests like Boyne River, Boyne Tano, Tano Anya, Tano Nimre, Jimira Extension. They are going into Kitre Point, Upper Wasau. They've gone into Krokosia Forest Reserve. They are moving. 45 of our forest reserves have been attacked.
I want to go back to the first question that I posed. Do you see the fights being intensified?
I think we all need to acknowledge the fight that under this current Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, we have seen some renewed zeal. We have seen some positive actions. He's backed the talks that he's done with actions. The IGP has also helped in a lot of the efforts towards the fight. And so there's been some positivity to it, what we were seeing in the past. However, the challenges still persist, and there are some challenges that we need to confront. And I think that what is happening is that because another thing that has happened is that in 2016, we saw a criminal transition from those people who claimed that they were NDC people, and because of that, they were leading the Galamsey fight. When the transition happened, you got those again who were claiming the influence and saying that it is their government that had come into power, take over the illegality and the criminality. And so, but then unfortunately for all of us, in 2024 and 2025, we did not see another transition again. We've rather seen a merger. So what you are seeing is that the NDC, those who claim to be NDC, these criminals who claim to be NDC, have merged with those who claim to be MPP, who were in the pits, in the forest, on our water bodies, decimating our environment and our waters and all of that. And now the NDC people are the minority stakeholder in this whole criminal enterprise that they find themselves in. And so with this, seeming merger, criminal merger that has happened, and they also having a minister who wants to fight, you are seeing an intensification of the efforts of these criminals, where they are working day and night in some of the places. One of the things that the minister for Interior had said, which we thought was a positive thing, was this whole thing about the transfer of the police people. But we are not too sure whether at this stage that has happened. If that had happened, how dare the police commander now rally mercenaries and criminals to confront Dr. Hanabisu, who had gone there to go and ensure that these Chinese people who are leading the destruction of our forests, how dare the police commander be the one the person mobilizing these people to prevent them? This police commander from our intelligence has not been transferred. And he's sitting in a place where Galamsey is happening in plain sight. And Hanabisu had gone there previously, people had escaped, and they had come back and they had come to arrest, and this is happening. So there are some of the things that are going positively, but some things that are going wrongly. Unfortunately, tomorrow, LI 2462 is going to be passed. It's going to mature. And, as Erastus was talking about it, that LI is a bad law to start with. The law itself, LIs are supposed to be based on the parent law. The EPA, the Constitution does not give the EPA the rights, to manage any human resource. So that LI could not have been built on the EPA Parent Act. It does not give them the power to do what it is that they are doing. And then Erastus had mentioned the fact that we had a guideline in place. And even when those who were working on the bill for the LI to be passed, if you look at the initial draft of the bill, it is not what it is that they had done. That bill was just the guidelines that they were going to convert into an LI. So that bill put a cap of the 2%. That bill did not allow you to go into protected forest. That bill also ensured that when it came to the management of the natural resources, what they had done now, where they have turned it upside down, where you would have to go to the minister first and get the permits to be able to go and mine, go to the Minerals Commission and go and get your leases, go to EPA before you come to the Forestry Commission, was not the case. In the past, it was the Forestry Commission was the first person you're going to go to, so that if the Forestry Commission decided that that's not the place they will allow you to go to. And this was not the protected, it was the production forest reserves, where they were doing 2%. Production forest reserves are forest reserves where timber is mined, where there's that production happening, but protected were left out. But if we've taken, with this particular LI that has been passed, it's opened the Pandora's box. So all the protected forest reserves can also be entered into. And bear in mind, there were large-scale miners that were mining in these forest reserves. You go into places that Chirano and Newmont have mined and they have reclaimed, you will not find the kind of destruction that we're beginning to see. That came up when all of this, LI was passed, and then we're busy under Sir John, as Erastus had mentioned, giving people entry permits to go in there and go and destroy. And so the import of even transforming the guidelines into an LI was completely missing. And it's a shame that His Excellency the President, who had given us his work, that when he came in, even President Anado, that we blame as having failed abysmally in the fighting of Galamsey, he had a revocation instrument to revoke this. And so it's a shame that tomorrow, on the 19th, this LI is going to mature. And so that, for me, it's also one of the challenges. You saw the challenge to do with what Dr. Anabisu faced. If we had declared a state of emergency in some of these communities, the national security crisis that is brewing from Galamsey, where you have, imported mercenaries that are coming from all parts of this country with guns and all of that, would not be something that we're tolerating. And so that bit also is one of the things that currently we have outstanding. The president had also told us that one of the KPIs for all MCs and DCs was going to be Galamsey. I have not heard it openly said that, because you see, everywhere Galamsey is happening, the DC or the MC is the security coordinating chairperson, and if they have a minerals committee, he is also chairing it. So the police commanders, the DCs, if we hold them responsible and start dealing with them either for their complicity or their incompetence, we will be supporting the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources to be able to deal with these issues. So, yes, there's been some positivity that have happened, but unfortunately, we are sitting on a time bomb. And I don't know whether you saw the recent post by Erastus of the Ankobra River. It's terrible. Today, when I flew from Takrady into Accra, and you fly over the estuary of the Ankobra into the sea, it is such a terrible sight. And it is something that we really need to look. Over Saturday, I was also in Takrady again, driving across the Pra. So the situation is really, really terrible, and we need to be doing something more urgently about it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kenneth Ashibe, and congratulations on a new job. Hopefully you don't get too busy that you take a step back. We still need your voice in this fight. This is the CDD-Ghana Democracy Dialogues podcast with me, Mama View Swabwaje.
Thank you for listening to the CDD-Ghana Democracy Dialogues podcast. Stay engaged, stay informed, and be part of the conversation on governance, democracy, and development. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and visit our website for more insightful discussions.